Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Emma's Rock Metal Managers Meetup. My name is Michelle Ronquillo, and I'm Emma Event Manager. For those who don't know, Emma unites music manager trade organizations across 13 European countries with over 2,000 members. Our mission is to bolster European managers globally through the Empower program, encompassing education, advocacy, networking, and research. If you want to know more, please visit our website and follow us on social media. I'll put the links on the chat just now. And also, please join your local MMF. And I'm also going to share a link, Google Docs, where you can connect and leave your details to connect with the people that are attending this meetup. I'm going to share today's agenda. So today we are talking about social media, and we have three experts. We have today Maren Maxeiner, social media coaching for Oktober promotion, Emma Wiggin, founder of Westwick Management, and Phoebe Lunny, who is vocalist and guitarist from Lambrini Girls. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Maren. And thank you so much for being here, Maren.
Thank you. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for having me. I would like to talk about some important social media topics that bands should work on, and I have the most important tips for posting and content with me today. But first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Maren. I work since the summer for Oktober Promotion in Hamburg. Oktober Promotion does print, online, and radio promotion for new albums and singles. And we also do content creator campaigns for tours and ticket sales. And my new department is everything around helping bands with social media. So I do social media coachings and explain the social media basics, focused on Instagram, but also coaching on Facebook, TikTok, and Spotify. I will tell you later more about the service in detail. And I also manage band channels and do their postings. And I can also do video production for stories and reels at concerts in Germany. Before Oktober Promotion, I was working for Warner Music. I was responsible for all the owned playlists on Spotify and also Apple and Amazon Music. And before Warner Music, I was working for the festival Wacken Open Air. And I did all the online and offline marketing strategies for the years when they were not sold out directly. So now they don't have this problem anymore. But yeah, I was there at this time, and I also did radio corporations and social media content plans. Yeah, so metal is also my music genre I like to work for, and I also like going on concerts. So let's start with something I also say to bands in my coachings. Today, it's not making music anymore. It's not just releasing a single. This is just 30%. And 70% is actually a good marketing and social media strategy. So that sounds a little bit sad, but this is the reality. And because, yeah, there's just so many bands and new songs every day. So getting through this, they need a marketing plan and a good social media. So this is what you as a manager also should make sure your bands know. Social media is actually something great if you use it right. I know musicians hate doing it or don't like to do it, but if you integrate it right into your day and start also accepting that this is part of your life, and then this will be awesome, I'm sure, because it's their own marketing tool. You know, they don't have to pay for it. It's something, yeah, they can present themselves how they like to. They can inform people, but they also can get in touch with their fans and build a real relationship. So if the channels do have a good structure, they also can replace a website. That's often expensive and much work to build up. So it's good to have these social media channels really good structured. Also important, and also one of the only ways to increase streaming numbers and ticket sales is a good content strategy. And of course, being present in the feeds of the people, because I always hear we need to increase our Spotify streams. What should we do? So the first step is really getting social media channels ready, because streaming and selling is always connected to social media. So if you make it there, I think you have the chance to improve all the rest. So let's start with some basic tips bands should work on. First of all, it's really important to be clear who in the band is responsible for the social media channels, and everybody in the band also should support this band member. And if you have a fixed photographer or videographer in the crew, this is so important because you always need to have new and good quality content, because the musicians are on stage performing. They cannot shoot content at the same time. So in the end, if there is no photo or video material, they cannot post something and then everybody is stressed. What should they post next? So it's really important to have a fixed also budget for this, because also from this material, you can fill your content plan for a long time. You can just stretch the content you have until something new is happening. So if there's coming a new album or a new tour, you have the material from the last one. And also regarding budget, I would suggest to invest more in social media than in print media, because you reach more people for less money, and also social media should be a fixed topic or a fixed part in the budget plan, because not only social media campaigns should be planned in this budget, also investing in a social media manager if the band is not doing it themselves, or also doing like social media education so that everybody in the band knows what to do and everybody is prepared very well. Next important thing is also the target group of the band. They should know exactly who they want to reach, and focus also on the platform where these people are. So it doesn't make sense to just do TikTok, to just do it, if you don't have a target group there. So I brought the numbers of the different platforms from 2023. As you see, and as many of you, of course, know, TikTok is a little bit more female, and most of the users are under 24. Instagram is 50-50 male and female, and most are under 34. And metal, for example, Facebook is still important because, as we all know, the target group is also mainly over 30, and Facebook users are also over 30. So it's a little bit more male also on Facebook than female. So it's really important to check the target group before you put effort in the right platform, and also then create the right content for the right target group, because you need to create content what these people especially want to see from you. The next topic to work on is a professional social media profile, or all the social media profiles. So these profiles are the band's flagship. They reach the fans, but also people from the music industry. So they look on how professional everything looks like. They look on the numbers, and then also they decide if they want to book a band or reach out for a record deal or whatever. So they check these profiles, and this also makes part of the decision. So the first impression should be really good. This is also what I teach bands. I don't want to go through all these elements, but it's really important to have everything structured, use all the information and link sections that are available, to put your streaming links and description, who the band is, what you do, everything in there, because if that looks good, people find everything they are looking for, like about the band or streaming links, ticket links. This can be like a website. So this is also one of the parts I work with bands on, to make everything look professional. So, and the last topic, of course, is the bands should work on the content itself. So for me, I want to share the most important things for content. For me, it's showing personality. It's really important to be different from other bands and give people a value to follow exactly your band, because otherwise they can follow another band, but you have to make the difference. The second thing is follower engagement. To increase the follower engagement, you need to develop interacting content ideas for your target group. So really things that are interesting for this group. And the third thing that's really important is constant posting. So if you do regular postings with a content plan and you're patient, then followers will not explode overnight, but over a well-planned period, I think this will work out. And also, if you have that content plan, you feel more safe on what to post next. So a content strategy is the basis for building real fans. So if you have bands that need help, I can support with the following topics. As I mentioned before, I analyze band channels. I help that they look professional. I also teach the basics in content knowledge, how postings, stories, reels, everything should look like. How to increase the follower engagement with individual ideas. I also help with the content strategy. I help developing the right content ideas. So really what is important, what is the best things that this band should share especially. And I can also provide a content plan for an album or single release or in tour. And if bands would like to start from the scratch, I can help with the band's image. We look on the USP and the target group to have a good start for creating the right content for the right people. So I think maybe this presentation can be sent afterwards so you can read everything in detail. Because yeah, you can also get in touch with me if you want to know more about this. But for the moment, this is everything I wanted to share. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, you can do it now or later. And I think I give back to Michelle.
Thank you so much, Maren. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, if you have any questions, please, you can write them on the chat or you can ask them at the end of the session. We are going to now welcome Emma. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So yeah, thanks, Maren. I think some of my stuff kind of crosses over with a lot of what you're saying. So first of all, I'm Emma. I run a management company called Westwick Management. One of the things I do, and I'm sometimes contracted in to do, is to work with artists that are struggling with social media, but normally usually at the very beginning. So they're struggling to like find the motivation or work out what they want to do with social media, or artists that have been around for a while but just don't really know how to use social media. So some of my tips are more on encouraging bands to use it. So as Maren said, one of the most important things is to start off explaining just why artists and bands should be using social media. I think once you get that point across, sometimes it's a lot easier. And secondly, get them to start filming stuff. So it's so easy, just, phone, tripod, set something up in a studio, film while you're touring. There's so much that can be filmed, that can be used as content. One of the things I always say is make sure you work with a band's niche brand or personality. I think the music often brings fans in, but getting your personality across on social media makes them become like super fans. And obviously you're able to like sell things and make money and just build your fan base. So it doesn't have to be like super complicated. A lot of the ideas I say to bands about getting their personality across can even just be simple things like using captions. So I know we've got Phoebe on here. They do a great job of just using their captions. I notice you put like a lot of like swearing and cool things in your captions. It's great for like branding, gets your personality across. And sometimes just that basic thing to start off with is great for bands that are like hesitant to start using social media and don't quite know how to do it. The second thing I kind of do when I start working with bands is I provide like a long list of content ideas, because sometimes it's hard to think of ideas from scratch. Whereas if you've got like a long list, sometimes they can like pick and choose what they're comfortable with. And then I also then tend to do like what I call trial and error. So I'll get the band like a day, and I do this every year at the beginning of every kind of like campaign. So if it's like an album campaign, and I'll do like a day of filming content with them. And I just like have fun with it, choose a fun location or go in the studio or something, hire a location, and just get them to try out as many different things as possible. And a lot of the feedback that I've got from bands is that by doing these days, they tend to feel a lot more comfortable. They learn about what works for them. Sometimes they'll walk away and not use any of the content, but it gives them an idea of like what works well on social media, so that they can then go away and start filming things themselves, like as they're on the road or as they're in the studio and things like that. And as I said, all the bands that I've worked with, they do find that like one day or half a day of like mass producing content really helpful, and it's good for like planning out and making sure you've got everything in place before a campaign starts. Next, I always do best practice with bands. So try and get them either a best practice guide or just run through kind of the general rules of social media. So obviously all of this is before they've kind of even started posting on social media. So once they've got to that point and you've got your content and everything, always make sure I do content planning. So normally I'll come up with like an Excel sheet or a document and a Google Drive, and then link the content to the Excel sheet and plan it all out. But like the key big pieces of content for the whole sort of album campaign. So with one of the bands that I did, we literally had a year's worth of key content that lined up with like core dates with like tour promos and single releases and things like that. But then obviously the plan is forever moving, so they can add in sort of whatever extra content, or if they're shooting kind of on the fly or something fun comes up, it's good for them to just be able to add it in. And the other thing that I tend to do is when starting off with bands is set tasks slowly. A lot of bands and artists get really overwhelmed if you just kind of pick them up and then start throwing loads of things like change this, change that, change everything. So I'll often start looking at what the artist is posting naturally, and then getting them to maximize their efficiency of that first. So making sure their basic posts include, all the correct hashtags, captions, the correct posting times, they're replying to comments, just general best practice stuff that they're already doing with their content, but making sure it's all perfect, and then building in tasks one by one, sort of as the weeks go on until they're kind of perfected all of it. Some kind of mental health tips that I've had a lot of feedback from is, again, a lot of the bands and artists have said that they find the planning ahead like incredibly helpful, and it's like key to how and it takes a lot of the pressure off throughout the year. So all they have to do then is just look at a Google sheet, click the video, upload. You can even use the scheduling apps and things like that. Which again, encouraging artists to share the load. And as Maren said, supporting whoever is doing the social media, it often helps a lot. So obviously bands, you've got multiple people. It's great if multiple people can sometimes like pick up a date or certain things, or just use, if you're a solo artist, like scheduling apps help a lot, because then it's all prepared and ready to go, and you can usually sit down like on a Sunday night and your kind of week is kind of prepared out. One thing I say is don't be afraid to reuse content sometimes. So especially if you've got things like music videos, you can use multiple clips of music videos or the same content. And again, that kind of takes the pressure off the artist to not have to like come up with so many pieces of content for sort of a campaign. I always say it's okay to take breaks. I know social media is meant to be, you know, it's better the more you post, but to avoid burnout, like that's the worst thing you can do. So just let your artists know that it is okay to take a break. It is okay to step back. And generally, I feel like it's always a good idea to have a conversation about dealing with sort of trolls and hate comments and things like that. Because one of the things I've noticed a lot of bands and artists do is they do focus on the negative over the positive, you know, 100 comments of good stuff, and they'll always seem to focus on that one comment or one piece of negative feedback. So it's always good to have a conversation around that, or if they're posting something that maybe hasn't had as good feedback, it's good to support them. And again, that just kind of leads on to general positive feedback. So when you're working with a band, you know, and especially changing things up or starting from scratch, it's very easy to kind of be like, oh, you're not quite doing this right, this right, this right. And it can come across as quite negative. But if you make everything like positive, like, oh, you've done really well with this piece of content, but maybe change it up a little bit, you know, they feedback a lot better. I think that's kind of all the tips that I've got today. So yeah, I don't know if I pass back to Michelle.
Thank you so much. That was super valuable. Thank you so much. Yes, and then we are going to pass on to Bradley and Phoebe. Welcome.
Hello
welcome.
there. You all right there,
Hey.
Phoebe?
All good.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. My name is Bradley, and I run a artist label and campaign management company in the north of England called Singing Like Music. One of my management clients are the fantastic punk rock band Lambrini Girls, and I'm delighted to say that Phoebe, who's the guitarist, vocalist, and social media mouthpiece, is joining us here today.
Hey, guys.
I've been a bit showbiz then. I apologise, everyone. Thanks for joining us, Phoebe. I guess a good place to start with this conversation, I suppose, is more the social element more than the technical side of it in terms of the marketing elements. With how you go about, particularly with Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, you present as a lot of fun, but also quite serious as well. You know, the band takes they take the job and the band very seriously, but not necessarily yourselves. Is that sort of a fair kind of is that like a fair sweeping overview of how you curate the process for yourselves?
I would say so. I think what has kind of become apparent from, slamming social media quite often is that there are different sort of avenues to go down in the sort of message you want to portray. So, for instance, with our Instagram, as also Emma highlighted, thank you, but about how we're like quite personable and quite funny and have a sense of humor and swear loads. It's a really good way to kind of put your personality across. And then when there's something which is like sort of like a political statement we put out, the first place usually I'll kind of put it out is Twitter, because that's where it actually seems those sort of things seem to sort of circulate the most. And after that, then we'll put it sort of on Instagram. So I think it's kind of about finding the right platforms for the same things and then marrying them all together. But what I've sort of found is whatever sort of message or image you want to portray, there's certain platforms which will sort of serve the purpose for that better than another one will. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. How did you find those first audiences? Like when you were just getting started and finding the voice of the band, like how did that process start?
I think we owe a lot to social media, because the band really sort of kicked off in COVID, and we were like a small local band from Brighton, and people didn't really know, who we were apart from our friends. So everyone was locked in their house. So I thought, why don't we make some really funny content videos and then get our friends to share them? And sort of, because everyone was trapped inside, it created a bit of buzz because everyone wanted something to watch, something to do. So it meant by the time sort of restrictions had ended, everyone thought we were hilarious and wanted to come to our headline show at a 60 cap venue. So it worked in our favor to sort of kind of build an organic fan base and then sort of use that to sort of grow from. So it really was purely because of social media ultimately that we kind of ended up building that fan base, even locally, sort of small.
Because you don't use your music an awful lot in the social media posts, or probably hardly ever, aside from maybe sharing live footage, which is blown out, overdriven sound anyway. Like, do you feel that, is it more personality driven then, do you feel, for you? And do you feel like that's a useful lesson for artists as they come through?
I would say so. I think sort of your personality on social media is sort of one of the main things. It's such a powerful marketing tool, and it's such a way to sort of create the narrative of who you guys are as a band. So I think it's something that you have a lot of freedom with and autonomy to sort of just kind of put out who you are. And I think that's what makes an audience wants to, connect to a band and know the band. And it's the best way to do that. In regards to putting out music on social media, if I see, a band live and I'm like, wow, I like their sound, I'm going to go on their Spotify. The first thing I do isn't going to find their Facebook or their Instagram or their Twitter or TikTok. I'm going to go on their Spotify. So I feel like it means that you kind of have a lot more room with, your actual social media platforms to sort of portray the image and market yourself in the way that you want. If you're in campaign, then I think it's extremely important that you're posting about your music or your new release and stuff like that. But in the in-between periods, if you haven't released something for a few months, there's no point, personally, I think, redirecting people to a song that you released 4 months ago, and use it more as a portfolio for what you're doing exactly now, like in this moment. Make yourself look as exciting as possible, and then people will naturally go and find your music. If they think you've got an amazing live show and you've put that on your Instagram, like a show you did last week, they'll come to your live show, they'll check you out on Spotify anyway, because people always want more. So that's the thing, people want to just get as much as they can if they like something. So if you sell yourself in the right way, then I do think people will follow, really. So I don't think you need to always be posting about music.
Fair enough. And then when it comes to variety of content, like some artists really struggle with bigging themselves up. If they get a radio play or a bit of press or whatever, they might shout about it once, but putting that sort of stuff up there is a very valid thing. It's it's good for the manager, it's good for the team, it's good for the people that follow the artist to get excited about it. How do you feel about putting up that sort of thing and presenting yourself as acclaimed when you get press and stuff like that? And how do you reconcile that with the other elements of how you present yourselves in the sort of fun-loving and interactive sort of way? I
think, like, arguably we've not been modest about it at all. Like, every time we've had a decent bit of press, I'll slam it everywhere possible. Every time really we get played on the radio, if it's Radio 6 or Radio 1, we'll always shout about it if that's a post or like an Instagram story or something. And I do think it's necessary, I think, because I know like a lot of bands who are modest about it and are like, oh yeah, let's not shout about this too much, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but then we live in such like a generation that has a mentality of like snap or it didn't happen. Like if they don't see it, then it didn't happen. So I think you do have to brag about these things. I think you genuinely have to shove them in front of people's faces. And that's why they'll think you're doing well. I think with a lot of social media, it's you're marketing yourself as a band that's doing well. And you could, if you play in a 1,000 cap gig and no one takes a picture of it or you don't post about it, no one's going to know you've done that. And I think what is most valuable for people who want to connect with you, who want to listen to you, is to know that you're doing these things and they should be rooting for you. So I think personally, just like a band, if they get a feature in Enemy, they get a feature in Kerrang or whatever, blast it like across all of the platforms, make as many people see it as they can. That's my personal opinion, and it's worked for us as well, because then people have got excited about it. So I'm not sure, and we didn't take a very modest approach, but I'm not sure if we did take a more modest approach and then it kind of was more of a word of mouth thing, if we would have as much as a following as we would, because people always want to jump on the bandwagon, in my opinion.
No, very true. I think that's good advice there. What's the hardest part for you about using social media? Like, do you experience burnout or apathy towards it, or reluctance to engage with it at certain points? And how do you get?
Sometimes the thing that I find really hard is like going back to what I said about the whole sort of snap, or it didn't happen if you don't post about it, because we've done some really amazing shows where we had a driver who was really up for filming things, coming backstage and making sure we had a lot of footage, and he'd send it to me and then we'd be able to post it. And what I really struggled with is we got another driver who was just an absolute massive geezer, and I just be like, can you take a picture of us, like, with all these crowds of people? And he'd tell me to do one and be like, no, I don't want to do that, which is totally fair enough, but it meant that we didn't have any sort of footage or content to post about these amazing things we were doing. And it definitely did sort of like the interest of or the interaction that we were getting from like Instagram or Facebook or wherever was definitely dwindling, because you don't have anything to sort of upload to your portfolio and people won't really view it the same. So, you can put in the same amount of work, but if you don't have anything to prove that you've done that, people won't arguably be nearly as excited. So I do really struggle with that, and sort of making sure that you've got those people around you to be able to capture footage or whatever it is you're doing. In regards to sort of burnout, the only times I've really ever experienced it was we had some sort of explosions on Twitter over sort of political things we'd done or political statements we'd made, if that was at a show or online. And then you end up with like a barrage of messages from, I don't know, Kevin 52 from Milton Keynes or whoever who just hates your guts. So those sort of things, I think there is sort of a bit of an error there in regards to like how much you can protect yourself, especially if you're exposing yourself to, like the World Wide Web. There is always the risk of, you being trolled. And you see it with so many bands. Like we've had it with like a lot of people who really were quite transphobic when we sort of put out like pro-trans messages, and like people who are homophobic, and you see it a lot with bands like The Last Dinner Party. They get a lot of abuse online and Picture Parlor, and I think really that is, unfortunately, I don't really know, I think there is like a bit of a flaw as in how much bands can be protected of that whilst keeping your autonomy and expressing yourself on social media and being authentic. So I think you do run the risk of that, and I do unfortunately think it's sort of part and parcel if you are putting yourself out there. But yeah, it does sort of you do get burned out by that a lot.
In this interim period before you reach arena level, like Last Dinner Party, and they have full content teams and all that sort of stuff, what can managers and publicists and people who are part of the teams, or the emerging teams for artists, what can they do to help protect artists with these sort of scenarios and support you and all of that sort of stuff?
I think
because we're all well and good, like we're putting together a content plan and go, post this, post that, this ticket needs to get sold, you need to post this, and that can be quite a drain, I think, on the artist's energy. They feel sort of put upon, and it's not very inspiring either from an what would I say, like personality perspective. But of course, the more personality put out, the more sort of physically vulnerable and more energy that would take from the artist. So yeah, just in and around that, like how can we support and protect artists and encourage the best out of that process as well?
I'd say it's a tricky one, because an artist does need to do all of those things, and I think it's really important in regards to building your brand and marketing, and connecting with fans. And as you said, Brad, it does totally also leave the artist a lot more vulnerable, because you're putting so much of yourself out there online. I think that is ultimately one of the sort of inherent problems with social media in general. It is a powerful marketing tool, but I think what a lot of people do is they will put so much of themselves out there, and it becomes so sort of intrinsic and sort of tethered to who you are. I think it's really worth teaching sort of bands and artists that what social media is purely a tool, and not to get too connected to it, and not to really care about how many likes something has got. So say if like you have an artist and they post something and it doesn't get that much interaction, actually like Emma said, not to sort of be like, well, this only got this much likes or this much interaction. Like instead of being like, oh, that was really cool, why didn't we try doing something like this? And sort of just keep it as objective as possible, because I think the worst thing is really when artists or bands start to internalize it and turn it in on themselves, because that is what social media unfortunately does to your brain, really. So I think sort of distancing bands and sort of educating them on how it can be used purely as a tool, but and how you can use it to sort of convey yourself, but not to actually sort of tether any of your own self-worth or your work or your art to it at the same time. So just to see it as another sort of alleyway to go down, as to make people listen, but it's not sort of intrinsically a part of your art or who you are. So I guess sort of trying to keep that distance between the two is really important. And I think that's why you see a lot of bands sort of getting this burnout or not really knowing what to do, is because it's quite a fine line to walk, because we haven't even had social media for that long. So like we don't really understand how to use it apart from the benefits, I would say. It's still quite a new thing, but so we don't really understand how it affects our brains that much in the grand scheme of things. So I think it's like approach with caution, and having strong boundaries there is really important.
Yeah, that's interesting. All of that you say, you know, it's a fine line to walk, but also at the same time, you want to make sure you're getting your personality and your values across in terms of like what you stand for and what you want people to understand, whilst also it being a churning machine and not having too much value on each post. And, you know, so there's a lot of sort of conflicting like thoughts at once within all of this. So yeah, is there anything, how did you decide and define that like live footage would be such an important thing for you, you know, like when you're getting people to take photos and videos and stuff like that? Is that something that people can, like, maybe the audience can get involved in, or like other members of the team outside of drivers? Like just trying to think about, you know, all those things you've got going on there, you're trying to spin all these plates. Like what's the easiest way that, in your view, like artists like yourselves could be supported by other members of the teams in terms of creating content and helping get stuff out there?
I think it's definitely about sort of finding your strengths and finding, like, if you have a niche. So for Lambrini Girls, it was like, I know we're a really good live band and I know people go nuts at our shows, so it was like other people should know about this. And it was sort of a reputation that we'd built on like quite a small scale when we were in Brighton, just playing gigs there. So I thought, well, if we're playing gigs in Europe now and in London, blah, 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 then that's something that should carry over. Obviously, you're not in that same echo chamber as you are when you're in a small city, but what you can do is bring that online, where there is also, you know, these echo chambers, everything gets rotated. I was like, that should, by logic, have the sort of the same effect, which I think it has, and has helped us sort of build up live hype. But in regards to like how a team can support a band, I'd say is like knowing what that band's strengths and weaknesses are, knowing if there's a niche to really tap into, and then sort of taking that and running with it and being like, how can we support it? So for us, what really helps me is when we'll have people around us at shows who are able to like get good footage of us, and then we can post that. Or if like, I mean, so many different things, like say if we haven't got new press shots in a while and we're on the road and we've got someone with a film camera who takes like a really nice picture of us in front of the tour van or something like that, and then you've got things like that which you can use down the line and you've always got them sort of there. I think it's just about thinking ahead and sort of really understanding the brand of the band, and sort of looking at how you can sort of capitalize off that. And I think that also takes a bit of stress off the artist in the future, because if you sort of have these things sort of building organically or just around, or the band just existing, it means that you don't have to be actively performing or actively doing something. You'll be like, let's make this content for social media, let's do this, let's do that, because you've already got sort of like a back catalogue of stuff there, which I think is really handy.
What tools do you use to create the assets? Like, so say when you get some videos in and stuff like that, do you just edit them in your phone? Like how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, a lot of the time I'll just edit them in my phone. I've got an app called Splice, which I just edit videos on that. And then I've got like a photo editing app. If we get played on Radio 1 or Radio 6, I just go online, find a vectorized version of the Radio 1 logo and put that over a press shot of us. But I can do it all from the phone. So it's quite easy, and just can do it in the back of a car, really, when we're on the road.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for all that. Emma Wiggin, anything that you feel like we're missing in terms of valuable chitter chatter here?
I don't think so. I think you answered a lot of the questions that I had for you guys. So yeah, thank you. I think you've highlighted some amazing points there as well.
Thanks.
Nice one, Phoebe. Thank you very much.
No worries. Cheers.
Thank you so much for such an interesting interaction. So I'm going to open the room for some questions for any of our speakers. So if you want anything to be answered, you can just unmute yourself or write the question in the chat and I will read it for you. Please don't be shy. Thank you so much, Michael. Michael is asking about social media reach. Can anyone would like to answer this?
What exactly about reach? It's a big question.
Right. Michael, would you like to unmute yourself and let us know what you're interested in?
Okay, I see how best to.
Hi everyone. I find that
Hi, Michael.
the tools and the content strategy, all of these approaches, this is absolutely the bedrock of where we want our artists to be fundamentally, and certainly from zero to some activity that's critical. If we're in a category with an artist or with our work in general, where we have a baseline, we'll call it, where these pieces are available to us and we're delivering them as best as we can within our space, arguably that can always be improved upon. Really what it then next comes down to is activation, which is driving, which is the connection, which is the reach. So it's great if you have all of this content in your own space with your X number of engagements and people who are with you, but really growing it and driving it and activating it and enhancing it and adding those, whatever the platform is, they're called different things, whether they be followers and whether you're generating likes, etc. So assuming at whatever level we have a competitive piece that we want to get out there and connect to the world that doesn't know us, the artists as us, what do we here as a community have that we can share in terms of tools and or mechanisms, devices where we have control, where it isn't about some third-party hire and budgeting for, unless really that is the only way to drive it, which is to hire a dedicated staff, dedicated team, or onboard it yourself if you can budget for that, that can really work on that.
So maybe some points from my side. I think also what Phoebe said before, the most important thing is sharing personality. And if you have some pieces that you want to share because people don't know you, I think it's always good, that you have pieces where you explain who's the band and also what they do beside music, share hobbies they have or whatever they do, or something they know really good about. So you can share all around the music topic. I think you can also use really all the tools that Instagram has for interaction. So you have so many things in the stories, like interacting, you click on emojis, or you start a trend, or you have all these survey or question stickers in the stories. So I would suggest to use all these interacting tools and also answer all the comments and also answer all the messages, because also Instagram counts messages as a personal contact and interacting. So it's really to just do to the basics and really keep on going regular. And I think from time to time the reach will increase also if you do some content with value. If you have some things the band knows something about, you can share these pieces step by step. You can have once a week, you have like a reel with something people don't know about the band, or people don't know that the band knows something about. And if you keep on going and keep on posting these things, I think there will be one content piece maybe that's really interesting for the people and will be shown to more people. And then, this will get things rolling if you just start being there week by week. So I hope that helps a bit.
Thank you, Maren. Aso is asking, Aso, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question, or would you like me to read? Let me know. Okay, I'm gonna read it. What do you do when you can't get the artist to be goal-oriented enough to follow through with it, with all the planning you have done and agreed on? Do you give up on it or continue pressuring the plan that the artist has agreed on?
Emma, what do you think on that one? You know, my hunch is that the artist needs to be working as hard as you, if not harder. So, but you know, that's the generic manager answer, isn't it? So, if you've got any more enlightened thoughts than that?
Yeah, I feel like definitely your artist should be working, as and agreeing to the goals and things. But I feel like don't give up straight away. You should always be going back and working with that artist. So there might be something wrong in the plan. They might not like the content. They might not, something might not be resonating with them. So it's always worth going back, having a conversation a couple of times with them, trying to work through it with them, maybe changing the plan up. If they say the plan's too much or it's too overwhelming, or, try and break it down and start smaller and then build it back up into like a bigger plan. Because, I find sometimes, especially with the album campaigns, you can just throw a huge load of information at an artist and they're just like, this is too much. I've got to post however many hundreds of pieces of content throughout the year. So it's always worth breaking it down smaller, talking to them, reassessing goals, and working with that artist.
And for you, Phoebe, have you noticed anything like that before, when you've got like the live agent or the label or whoever getting in touch and you're just like, I can't actually deal with this thing, and you want to sort of move on from the plan or anything like that? And in those cases, what have you done to sort of work through that?
I think like as long as you're communicative with your team about what you want to be putting out there and what you don't, I think that's okay. I think if if there's like an artist who doesn't want to post stuff but isn't explaining why, then I don't really think that's like as much as a valid excuse if there's like a plan behind it. But if you explain why you don't want to post something and offer an alternative, then I think it's totally reasonable. Like we've had people from our team like, can you post about this more, or can you say this on social media? And sometimes I've just been like, no, I think that's like really cringe, and everyone's going to be like, why have we done that? And then if you say, but we could do this instead, and as long as everyone's happy, I think you can still do it in your own way, but it's about getting to A to B. And as long as you do that and it's still, you think it's authentic, then I think it's fine. But I don't think really like you should, call a stalemate and not explain why and just sort of hinder where you're trying to get to with it. But you can do it in your own way. And I think like artists are entitled to do that as long as you also communicate why you'd like that and what you think will work.
Yeah, I noticed with the one band that I was working with, they had this album coming out and they wanted me to do a campaign for them. And we talked and talked about it and planned for it for months. And when I gave them all the tools, we had a photographer and videographer ready. We had everything like set up so that this band can actually do it without any stress. And they were like thrilled about it. And suddenly I never heard anything from them again. And then I tried to reach them again, and they said that, okay, we are still thinking about it and we want to do this, but there was just something that did not go well. And I think that with some especially newer Finnish bands that I work with, it's a really common thing that people are scared of social media and the fact that they actually have to put their faces out there. And it's the goal orientation type of thing rather than the social media content, which is tricky because nowadays, as you guys showed in the beginning of this, 30% is the music and 70% is the social media. So it's like really hard numbers.
Yeah, but I also have that with the Scandinavian band, so I know what you're talking about. And I always, try to start slowly and also always explain if you just think it's so normal, but also explain the basics that they know why and what they are doing. And I just recommend them to just start at one point, showing their faces in the camera, start talking in the camera, because it will get more easy from time to time you do it. You have to start at one point, but yeah, if they don't want to, it's really not easy, but try to convince them with the everything they have from that, because they will have profit from that.
Yeah, that is sad because I have seen especially this one band putting out their music right now, and they basically like share one post about the music, and that's it. They don't like use any of the things that I did tell them or taught them at the time, or any advantages that they were given. So it was kind of sad to see that, but sometimes things go like this.
Yeah, you try to.
I feel like with some bands and artists as well, if they're really reluctant to put their face out on camera for the first time, like there's so many other content ideas that you could start to at least start building up the techniques of using social media without having to put your face. So, if they've got music videos, or if they even like really silly things, like I've managed a band and there's a northerner in there and he's always carrying biscuits around with him everywhere he goes on tour. So like literally they shoot a picture of what biscuits he has on that show or that studio date. But under the captions, you're still promoting the fact that they're in the studio or they're on tour or they're playing this show or they're trying to sell this much, but it's done through like a slightly unique, different way. And then also it always gets the debate up about, fan engagement with like what biscuit's the best and things like that. So there's, even if bands are like really, really reluctant to like do the on-camera stuff, there's still, if you think outside the box, there's still ways of doing things where they can start off by not putting their face on camera and then kind of build up to it.
Thank you so much. I have a question for anyone who would like to reply. When is a good time for an artist to have a team that takes care of social media? At what point in their career?
So I think, to be honest, it's always about the budget, because you have to pay these people month by month. So I think most of the time that's the topic, but also if they want to get bigger and they are not used to social media, or they don't want to do, or they don't know how to do it, they will need somebody who will do it for them. So it can be in the beginning or if they are bigger, but if they don't know how and don't want to do it, they will need somebody at some point who's doing that for them, I think.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
I
Sorry.
guess to that end, it's still defining the personality of the artist and the band and identifying the audience, isn't it? Which, is very personality driven, then analytics driven. So it's a very complicated thing to just helicopter people in and expect that's actually going to change anything very quickly. So it has to be very defined in the first place before you start bringing people in, because you're just going to spend a lot of money and not achieve the results that you want.
Right.
Talking of money, I actually have a bit of a question both for Phoebe and Maren, if that's all right. We haven't really touched on it, but it's more on like ad strategy and using ads and things. Like Phoebe, have you ever used ads in your social media strategy, and have they ever like worked for you? Or
We never use them ever. I think the only time we've ever used an ad is, I think when we were trying to sell out a show at Moth Club, like months before. We were like, the promotion company were like, oh, we'll get some Facebook ads to help drive sales, and that did. But I think that's the only time we've used ads. We've never done it to try and gain followers or anything. I do understand why people would want to use ads, and I think if you're in campaign, then I think it does make total sense to use something to advertise your new EP or single. I think in regards to just having an ad like follow me on Instagram, I don't think it will work, because, well, it does work, but I think in regards to actually sort of building a genuine buzz, I think if you're posting, you know, good enough content that people will share it, and then that's kind of like free advertising through, you know, people who have mutual followers or whatever. And I'd say that's arguably just as sort of powerful. If you're posting the right stuff, then it will get shared about, and then that's, you know, exposure for free. But I do think, you know, ads are good, but I think there is a time and a place for them. I don't think it's something really like all the time blasting it will have the same effect, and also then you lose, you know, a fair bit of money too.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think the best time is when you're having a tour and want to push a certain city. So then you have also an easy target group to get people to that concert in Hamburg or whatever. But otherwise, I would also always say, do it everything you can do organic. And then, yeah, if you have a release or a tour, you can have some ads with really small money. But yeah, better to build everything with your personality and good content for the right target group.
And
again,
music
I think
being... Oh, sorry, Emma.
Oh, I was gonna say again, I think that's great advice, just because I do see a lot of bands that try and take the shortcut of just trying to run ads and put all their money into like paid advertising without actually covering the basics and doing these sort of organic basics of social media. So sorry, Brad, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, with music as well, it's a very particular sort of connection that the audience has with it. You know, like you can run an advert, but that doesn't necessarily mean people are going to go through those phases of feeling emotionally connected to the product, for want of a nicer word. You know, like it's fine that there's an advert up for bathroom cleaner, you know, and you go like, great, I need some bathroom cleaner. That's just a practical thing. But music is a much deeper, stranger relationship, isn't it? So like adverts can occasionally even be intrusive to the point where you might feel a little bit off-putted by something. So you need to be quite careful about how you sort of join those dots and figure out what your targets are. But if the goals are just to try and get your numbers up or something like that, I've never seen it be effective in the long term.
Yeah, and also if you then people are following and then they don't get what they expect, because then you don't have cool content or something, yeah, people like, and then they follow and then they will unfollow very soon, because yeah, that's not a long-term thing.
I think Steph's actually just made a really good point in the chat, that I feel like with ads, organic content that's already doing really well is usually the stuff that you should put the ad money behind, because then you know it's already like a proven piece of content that's already working, already resonating, so you're not necessarily like wasting your money on something like, you know, cold going out there.
Thank you so much. We have right at the end to the end of our session. I just want to thank every one of you for this fantastic session. There was a lot of really interesting pieces of advice. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here. And we will upload the recording to our YouTube channel in the upcoming weeks. Thank you so, so much.